The Notcast, life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends, everything that should make you happy. But still, there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast podcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
So, episode 28 of the Notcast, Getting Help. Where do I start? 3 keys to finding the therapist or coach that's right for you.
Whoop, whoop. Have you got any wordery? Any word magic?
Have I got any wordery? Do you know, it reminds me, I think I was about 16, 17, and I remember talking to some friends, and I was like, yeah, I just worry sometimes. I just don't have a very good word bank.
Oh, wow.
And obviously they
so
were
much
like...
in there.
No. Obviously they were like, you mean vocabulary? Oh yeah, that one.
Wow. I'm not even going to unpack that.
Anyway, yes, I have plenty of wordery for you.
Thank you.
So the first word that made sense to me to look at was start.
Mm-hmm.
So start. Begin or be reckoned from a particular point in time or space. An event or process coming into being or causing such. Jerk or give a small jump from surprise or alarm. The point in time or space where something has its origin. Beginning. Interestingly, beginning means the same, or begin means the same as start when I looked that up.
Right.
So the etymology for start, it's got a few meanings, and they are to caper or leap. That's from Old English. Dutch is push. And then there's the German, which is fall headlong or fling. But I suppose the main one for me was that I took from that was caper or leap. So then looking at caper, caper is to skip or dance about in a lively or playful fashion, basically.
Love it.
The etymology for caper is it's actually an abbreviation that comes from capriole. And capriole is a movement performed in classical riding in which the horse leaps from the ground and kicks out with its hind legs.
Wow.
Pulling this together, for me, it's like, if you think about when those animals jump, they there's that spring, right? They go back on their hind legs and they spring. And I was thinking of the idiom when we leap into something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for me, I guess there's that action, there's that initial spring. There's a bit of initial ping.
Momentum.
Yeah, a bit of momentum, right? But there's this force that to get things literally kicked off.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the first one for me. So there's something about starting, but there's an energy. There's an energy there, a kicking off. There's something about that in there. So the other one that grabbed me was, or at least initially, was help.
Mm-hmm.
Help seemed quite simple for me. Is make it easier or possible for someone to do something by offering one's services or resources.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, that's my word magic for now. I did look at right and therapist and coach and all of that, but I think I'm going to save those. So did anything come up for you when you're reflecting on the title and what it means to you and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've been in that space and it's been an interesting journey. Like the first time I had to find a therapist, I had to find a therapist.
Right.
Like, because it was for my degree.
Oh, actually had to.
I actually had to. Yes. And I'd never thought about it before. I didn't have such an awareness of like therapists and coaches and stuff like that. So that was a really interesting process. And I guess it would have really helped me, is what I reflected on, to have had something like this to listen to, because I just went in and thought that that's it. Like I've went and seen this person now, I'm stuck. I can't say no. So yeah, that's not a thing, by the way, people. You can say no. It's okay to say no. And yeah, I did a little bit of kind of looking around and realized that from the looking around that about 1.5 million people in the UK were having therapy pre-pandemic. So that was quite a number for me anyway, because it's, as I've progressed through my journey, it's become a lot more acceptable. It held more of a taboo then, so it's more acceptable now. And when I first started working with people, I've noticed over that period of time that people are a lot more open to it now than when I first started working as a therapist. Yeah. So that's, for me, is a real positive. But I think there's still a fair way to go.
So I guess then going into my first point kind of leads to what I was talking to from the worderiness of the word start. And that's just start.
Nice.
Just start. The take the smallest step, whatever that means. Because like when I was thinking about like what was my first step, like I could trace it back quite far. Like it wasn't like this monumental step where I picked up the phone to somebody or something like that. Like that wasn't really the first step. The first step for me was, I remember I was regularly like wishing for the weekend, waking up like on a Saturday morning and just sort of staring at my four walls, feeling miserable and stuck. And there's this whole like, I feel like I should get out of bed because there's all these things I should do that I could do and maybe even that I want to do, but not really feeling like I could. And this whole feeling of what's the point? It was a real stuck and trapsness, and I didn't get it. And then it, made me feel really down, and then, just spiral. But there was something at some point that kind of, I don't know, I guess I had some kind of insight that was like, oh, maybe there's something I can do about this. It was like, maybe this is like a changeable thing for me. And that's when I remember actually leaping out of bed in a way and going downstairs to my computer and just started typing stuff into the search engine, starting to have a look, like what was out there. Like that actually led me initially to look at self-help books. And I think it was a Paul McKenna. I think I got a Paul McKenna book, one of his like change your life in 7 days, or I can make you happy in 7 days, or like I can, whatever he's promising for in 7 days. I don't know. Something like that. That didn't solve all my problems, unfortunately. Apparently you can't just half read a book.
No way.
Apparently you can't just half read a book and then expect your life to change. But the point is that started the process of me. There was this shift from complete stuckness and helplessness into, oh, hang on, maybe I can do something about this. Maybe there's a possibility. Yeah. And that was a real start process. The whole, and it went on and on.
Yeah.
From there, but I remember that actually being a turning point of starting and then realizing, of starting and going so far down the track. Yeah, realizing that didn't work. Feeling stuck again for a bit, but then trying something else.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that first step holds so much. So yeah, I think it's really important just to take that first small step. So mine kind of my first point kind of refers a little bit to what you spoke to. It's, what am I really searching for?
What am I really searching for? Tell me more.
Yeah. So this happens a lot with clients. They come in with the sense that somehow you're going to fix them. And there's some sort of magic that's going to happen. Like, I'm going to go and see a therapist. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to go to a workshop and my whole life is going to change, like just like that. And that's not how it works. So I feel like it's really important to ask yourself the question, like, what am I really searching for? Am I searching for somebody to fix me? Am I searching for a space where I can explore? Am I searching for something that's a quick fix? Like, just to have an idea around that. Because I've been in that space before. And like you spoke to about the book, like I've been in that space where I've got myself a book, or even in my own coaching or therapy sessions sometimes, I can go to that place where I kind of, it's easy to give it back to the coach or the therapist and think that somehow they're the people that are doing the heavy lifting and they're going to do the work and they're going to make it all okay. That's not how it works. So if you are thinking that, don't. Just saying that's not how it works. So yeah, I think it's a good question to ask yourself before kind of searching out a therapist or a coach, or before you go and see them. Just, what am I searching for, and what are my expectations?
Yeah. Well, that does lead on to some further wordery. Nice opening for that.
Hey!
Well, because I looked at therapist and coach, because I know, like, for me, I still wrestle a bit with, like, what do I call myself?
Yeah.
Like, I really was attached to the therapist label before. I've never really felt like I really like embraced coach. And I know that's why we joke about how we're theracoaches. Not sure either are entirely accurate, but yeah, when I looked at therapist, my one issue with it is I think there is a sense of brokenness in there.
Absolutely.
And fixingness. And I thought maybe it was just my connotation, but when I looked up the dictionary definition, a therapist is someone who treats psychological problems.
Yeah.
And even therapy, it comes up as the treatment of mental or psychological disorders by psychological means. So it's inherent in there, in like, I'm going to a therapist, I need to be fixed. And I do feel like some of the education piece that I do with people is like, you're not broken. It's like, but then if you think about that kind of the oxymoron, it's like, you're not broken, then why are you going to a therapist?
Yeah, no, it has that. I've had moments where, you're talking to somebody, and I've had moments, right, actually, where I've told somebody I'm a therapist, and they're almost like, oh, I don't need one of those.
Yeah.
Kind of back off. I've also had the response of, oh, does that mean you're analyzing everything that I'm doing? It's, and then some people, it's like, oh, I don't need to see a therapist, I'm not broken. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I get that. Although at the same time, then there is the healing, there is the metaphor about healing, right? So, and because I think if we take that to the extreme, like no one's broken, what a person could hear in that is, oh, so you mean there's nothing wrong with me? And
absolutely.
Like, as in, like, I don't mean that, not there's nothing wrong with me, but that nothing needs to change. And it's like, well, maybe that's not true either. And there might have been something specifically wrong with you, but that doesn't mean that maybe you don't want to make changes. And we don't want to get into the denial space, I guess.
Yeah.
But then, interestingly, I looked at coach. Okay, now,
right,
coach. The first, or I suppose the more applicable definition is an instructor or trainer.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's actually, I like that more because it doesn't imply brokenness, right? Although it does still feel a little bit sparse.
Yep.
However, this was brilliant because then what I saw, and this was actually the first definition I saw. This is a British definition: a comfortably equipped single-decker bus used for longer journeys.
Love it.
And of course, when I saw that, I'd expected to read like, a trader coach type thing, or like this kind of coach. I burst out laughing. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, if you think about what we do, we create a safe container for people to travel and take journeys. It's like,
we go on a journey with people. Yeah. Love that.
So we can start calling ourselves buses.
No, definitely not.
But that'd be bussing, yo.
Oh dear, I apologise. I fully apologise for that.
I don't know what you're apologising.
Oh dear me. I'm apologising to my ears. Love it. Oh gosh. No, that's great. Thank you for educating moi.
But I guess coming back to your point, what are you looking for? And I do feel like some of the work that I will do with people is helping them see, hang on a minute, you're not broken.
Yeah. And
helping them to understand, like, what, if they, well, and sometimes that's the big thing, right? If a person really believes that there's something wrong with them, the journey is about helping them see, no, there isn't. And that's not just my opinion. Genuinely, there isn't. And actually helping them to see that for themselves.
Absolutely. Freaking-lutely. Yes.
So leading on then to my second point, I guess, because you've done your first one now.
Yeah.
Talk to them, spend some time with them.
Yeah.
And I say this because for me, this is the best way to know if a person's right for you, is see if you connect.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, I know it, not exactly in a therapeutic context. Well, I mean, I've got a couple of examples. Like, I've been recommended people before, as in, like, someone has recommended me go work with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and I've trusted and respected that person who did the recommendation, but then I've not really vibed with the person.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say on the other side, sometimes that's a good thing, because, like, I've usually learned something from that experience. Like, I've usually, like, it's highlighted something in me. I do think there's a difference between kind of seeing that someone's not right for me and actually having some kind of negative. I guess there's a difference between, oh, it's not right for me, and absolutely fuck no.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very different things.
Well, the way I like to think of it now is, if it's an absolutely fuck no, if there's a real visceral kind of reaction, it's like, well, you know, how is that about me? Like, what's that bringing up in me? That doesn't necessarily mean that I have to work with them, but there might be some good learning there. And actually, some of the times where I've worked with somebody and I've not thought it was a good idea, I've definitely learned from it. Like, one example I can think of, I went in with a bunch of mistrust and defensiveness, although I wasn't really aware of it, because it was coming out as, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, etc. And, you know, they're the wrong person for me. And then what I realized, and actually some of it was through talking with a friend of mine to understand. I think the therapist sent me an email, and I sent it to my friend, and I was like, I just want to check. I think they're being a dickhead, and I just want to check I'm not the dickhead. My friend comes back and says, I think they're actually a very smart person.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, all right. But then, what was interesting then was, then that helped me look at myself and lower my guard a bit. And then when I went back and the following session, we actually did some really good work.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, that's what that space is about. It's about the uncomfortable. It's not about being comfortable. And I just, because that was one of my standalone points, to be fair. It's like, that's not what that space is for. Like, if it's like going to visit a friend every week and you got your cup of tea and all that, and it's a bit of a chit chat, for me, that's not a space I'm going to grow in. That's not a space that challenges me. I'm just going to collude with that.
Yeah.
Because I can. So.
Although I do think there's a balance. I think for me there absolutely has to be the trust, and I think respect as well. I think there has to be the trust and respect for the person that somebody's working with. At least it has been in my experience, on both sides of the
absolutely
room, chair. Whatever.
Yes, that helps.
Well, because I think if there's the trust and the respect there, then when it gets uncomfortable, it's going to be easier for me to trust that person. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rather than believe my bullshit about, you know, if I'm trying to retract, if I've got, because that's what used to happen to me, is that I would, if it would get uncomfortable, I would be defensive in some manner or wanting to escape, and my mind would want to be blame them. And what I noticed was that was less likely to happen with people that I found that I trusted and respected.
Absolutely.
Because I would trust their judgment. And you could say that's negative the negative side of that can be that, you know, you can end up being not trusting your self-judgment. So I do think it's a balance. You don't want to put all of your trust in someone else and completely ignore your gut.
Yes. Which leads straight into my second point.
Whee!
Loving this. Feel into it.
Feel into it. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's a feeling thing. It's a space to really feel into, how am I feeling when I'm in this space with this person, rather than being all up in my head. Because I know my head is the space that's going to start messing with me, because I don't want to explore those things that are difficult or messy or painful. And I know when I've been in that space myself, I've gone up into my head and it's all been like, blame, you're not good at this, like all this kind of stuff. But really, I didn't allow myself to sit with the feeling, which was actually, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable about what's going on. But that's a good thing, because I need to look at this. But I think when you go and meet them, and very much for me now, it's really about how I feel in that person's presence. Because that's going to tell me, if I listen to my gut, whether that's the space for me or not. It's a real felt sense for me. So it is about, for me, checking in with your gut feeling and what it's saying. Because, yeah, if I'm totally uncomfortable in a space and my intuition is like just going no, then that's not something, that is maybe something I need to go and explore, but not in that space.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that's a really, really important thing. Just tuning in with how you're feeling when you're in that space and being aware of, as you said, what's my stuff here? How am I putting up the obstacles, or, landing in that space in my head rather than feeling into what the actual feeling is? But I feel like it's really important to have that kind of felt sense and intuition about the person that you're going to be sharing so much with.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that's something that can be developed. Like, I know I had terrible intuition before, or at least I wasn't listening to it, didn't know how to access to it, didn't know the difference between that and the fear voice. And still can get it wrong sometimes, or I'm not always sure. And I suppose for me, coming back to, if there's someone that I trust and I feel more comfortable around, it's going to be easier to feel into that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because for me, it's like, I liken it back to like the courage edge. It's like the courage edge is like, I feel say I'm on the edge of the discomfort, so I can turn towards it. But if it's too much of it, if it looks like if I'm too much in fear, if it's too much threat, then it might be a bit of a tall order to turn towards that, because it looks so real.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's about that readiness as well. Like, sometimes I'm not ready to do that, to stare it straight in the face. Yeah. But I think for me, that's why it's been so important when I've kind of met with coaches and therapists. I really allow myself to lead from that space of really tuning in to what's going on for me, mind, body, soul, because that normally leads the way for me. And for me, it's like that container of love and understanding. And if everything is sort of telling me, no, this person's not getting it, they're not getting me, I will check whether that's my head stuff or whether that's my intuition kind of speaking to me. And really, it's about trusting myself and the other person in that space.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Check in with yourselves, people.
Yeah, it's interesting you talking about that, because when I think about it, I don't think that was something somebody ever... I don't remember ever being trained to do that, but I do remember working it out at some point and getting better at it. And it is something that now I don't think I ever do like a let's work on your intuition session with clients, but it is something I'm very aware of now with people, is like, that checking in, that kind of getting connected with yourself. And I see it, I see it in myself, and I see it in other people. You can tell when someone is really up in their heads and not connected with themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I fell in that space. So this is why it was such a big thing for me. So like, I had a therapist for 5 years, and that was the therapist that I saw when I started my degree. However, as I grew myself, I was able at a certain point, well, actually, the first thing I did was pretty much walk away from it and go, it's you. You're not challenging me enough.
Right.
You're not challenging me enough. I'm stopping this. And then I went off, and it was a real space of courage for me, because that's really not where I was at the time. But on reflection and spending a few months really looking at it, I realized that I'd never asked for what I wanted.
Right.
And I just sort of projected it, and I hadn't felt into it. I'd gone straight into my head because of my fear of being able to say, actually, this is what I want and need. And when I did that, and I was able to go back and do that, the relationship started again, and it was a very, very different experience. And it was really worth it, because it showed I could do that. And for me, what I loved about the therapist is that she was able to hold that. And she was able to show me the love and understanding in that. And it was such a growthful experience. So I feel like that's it's a great opportunity to kind of do that.
Well, I guess that kind of leads on to my third point, which is forget the labels, feel the vibe.
Okay. I love that. Forget the labels.
Well, and what I mean by that is like, so although this isn't directly related to me working with someone in a kind of therapeutic fashion or a coaching fashion, it did happen to me when I was looking to do some training, basically. I was looking around and I was looking at websites, and I found someone who on the website was saying all the right things. I mean, at the time, to be fair, I was looking for a certain type of accreditation and qualification. I realize now I found something that technically didn't exist, and I think the person kind of knew that. But anyway, I didn't at the time, but it was selling me what I thought I wanted, right?
Yeah.
So I was sold by that, and then I'd already decided that I was going to sign up. I didn't have a very long conversation with the person on the phone at that point, but I signed up, paid the money, etc. And it was about halfway through the first day of training where I was like, shit.
The penny dropped.
I think I might have made a mistake.
Oh dear.
Now, kind of to my point earlier, the positive side of that was that I learned a hell of a lot. Like I learned a hell of a lot about myself, about my decision-making process, about what I'd got myself into and how, and all of that. It was, don't get me wrong, it was a big, expensive mistake, but it was also one that in a way that I needed to learn, because it was that path that took me on to being able to make my next decision about where I studied and what I learned. And that was then a lot better as a result. And one of the big things that I took from that was, spending time with someone, talking to them, like getting to, have I got that right? Have I got that right feeling? Does this feel right for me? Kind of in a way what I was talking about before, where I had recommendations from people and then it was like, oh, hang on a minute, but this person recommended me, but why am I not feeling it?
Yeah.
It's because the vibe wasn't right for me. And I go back to what I was talking earlier about, the label about therapist or coach, or, what do we settle on, or do we make up a new phrase? It's like, that shit doesn't really matter. It's all made up, really.
Yeah, completely.
Well, because I know we talked about like counselling before, because I had a negative view of counselling, but mostly because I think it was trashed by the people that I trained with, because they weren't counsellors. And I know we've had conversations before where I've said, oh, I think counselling's like this, and you've been like, yeah, that's not how I worked as a counsellor.
Yeah, completely. I think there's a lot of fantasy and myth and all this stuff around it. And for me, it's, don't fall into that generalized label, because every coach or therapist is completely different. It's the person that they are.
Yeah.
That's what they're bringing into the room. It's like, I urge you not to get taken in by letters after names and what somebody calls themselves and all of those things. But feel the vibe. That is just really, really important.
Yeah. I had someone not long ago say to me, this is after we'd had a consultation, she said, so how is what you do different from counselling then? And of course, straight away, initially, my initial thought was, oh, how do I answer this? Like, but then I guess I realised on some level, I was like, I'm going to be coming from what my idea of counselling is and all of that. And I just said to her, oh, have you had counselling before? And she said, oh yeah, I had it before. I was like, oh, okay. And was the conversation we've just had was that similar to counselling for you, to your experience of it? And she was like, oh no, it was completely different. I was like, well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
But not because I'm trying to say like, oh, because I'm so much different than counsellors. Like obviously her experience with me was different to what she thinks counselling is.
Yeah.
Or what counselling was for her with whoever she saw them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, completely. Like having been in trainings with therapists, coaches, counsellors, like it really is about the person and their embodiment of essentially working through their own shit.
Yeah. Well, it's something I realised, I don't know, within the last couple of years. Like before, I was looking at like, who can I train with, because what are they teaching me? What's the tools and the techniques?
Yes, absolutely.
But what I've now seen is it's what they're modeling for me.
Yep.
It's who they're being, if you like. And then they might have tools and techniques and stuff like that, or stuff that I turn into tools and techniques from what they've taught me, if you like.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really about them, who they're being, and the perspectives on the world that they bring.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about the ability for me to connect, and the feeling. For me, it's always about the feeling and the feeling of love and understanding. And somebody that is, I know that I'm kind of drawn to the spaces, whether it's in training or with coaches or therapists, that where people are not sounding like they've just read this thing in a book and they're then spouting it out back at you. And I've had that experience too. And it's just like, what the fuck is this? But I've also had clients say that to me. Like some of the biggest feedback I always get is, yeah, I can tell it's not something you've read in a book. I can tell that you've lived it. You know, so be discerning.
Yeah. But
Take
I think
the time.
I think that's the thing. I think I was going to say, I think it's a nuance. I think it's more than a nuance. I think if it's something that's just book learning. I mean, I used to, when I first trained as a therapist, I used to think I listened to people, but I didn't really. I was kind of scanning what they were saying and waiting for certain key words where I went, oh, that's
a thing.
That's an in for the technique. Stop that. Close your eyes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's what made sense. I mean, over time, then obviously what happened is spending more time with people, growing as a person, etc. You know, thankfully, I let go of that. But that's because I was able to do that through the experience that I then had with people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things I think that has changed for me over the years is I listen to people so much differently now because of how I've grown. And I say what I've learned, but not necessarily because of courses and books that I've read, if you like. It's but what I've learned and my experience, so that now some of it is technical in terms of like I know how to listen better for language. When I'm listening to people, I hear what they're saying on a different level. And that's then when I'm able to do something different or take it in a different direction than I may have a few years ago. And that's what I hear when I'm working with people, when I'm looking to work with people. I'm listening, like I'm listening for what's their perspective, how are they seeing things, and if they can see something that I can't, then that says to me, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it can be such a beautiful experience, like with the right person. It's really a beautiful experience because it can be such a wonderful container that's safe. And I know for me in those spaces, it has been life-changing, both for myself when I'm client, but also for my clients, which I guess leads me into my third point.
Hey.
Which is road test.
Road test.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. I mean, I feel like that I really learned from that I just went with the first person because I thought I've seen them now and, you know, but as a therapist and a coach, and we're kind of used to that. I would urge you to go and have that experience with different people, because otherwise, how can you know what feels good, what feels right, what kind of relationship is possible with that person, whether there's a connection or not. And I really feel like I have worked with a lot of clients where they've previously had an experience and then they've sort of written it off for a long time because it wasn't a good experience.
Yeah.
So, and then it's a generalized label. It's kind of like all therapists are like this.
Therapy doesn't work.
Yeah,
Coaching
it doesn't work.
Rubbish.
Yeah, it's rubbish. It doesn't work. I've had a negative experience. And for me, that's why it's really, really important to road test and ask the questions. Like for me, there's no such thing as a stupid question as such. It's just like, just ask the questions that you feel you need to ask in that space and get the answers that you need. I think that's just really important thing to do. Because it is a space where ultimately you share you. And to feel like you're in the right space with the right person is pivotal to that relationship working for you. And I feel like as a good therapist, coach, those therapists or coaches should encourage that.
Yeah.
Exploration. Because I know for me, like you've spoken to, it's like, it's about the right fit both ways. Like, I'm not just going to take a client if I don't feel like it's the right fit, or it's not something that I work with, or it's something that I know that another therapist or coach I know can work with better, or it's something that's more of their experience or their specialism. So I think it's really, it's pivotal to go and explore and be curious about the therapists and coaches.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I used to think of it, as like getting help was almost like, you go to the therapy aisle, grab yourself a therapist, grab yourself a coach. And I see it more and more now, like it's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a relationship you're forming. And with that kind of relationship, I think where it's close and it's deep, you can't just jump into it as such. You need to make sure that it's right for you. And so,
absolutely.
What you say about road testing, and that's kind of what I was getting at with, like, talk to them. You might read their website, and I think it's a great starting point, but see what your interaction with that person is. Because I know I've spoken with people before, and so, like, something they've said, like, they've said things like, "You're my only hope," or something like that. And I'm always a bit like, if someone's saying stuff like that, I'm like, that's not a great space to be in. That's a real reactionary. And I guess there can be exceptions. It's not always just the words, but the feeling I'm coming at from, if someone's desperate for help and they in their mind they think I'm the only option. Like, I had somebody where I talked to them, and they had difficulty using the internet and stuff like that, and it was all being done by, like, through other people. They came to see me, and I didn't really feel that we gelled very well. The way I was working, and I was trying to work with her, I don't think we really gelled. Yeah. But she just kept coming back to, so can you help me? Like, I can say, I'm guarantee if I'd have said, oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, she'd have said, great.
Yeah, no, completely.
And I don't think it would have worked very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's important to be able to say no in those spaces. Yeah.
Well, I think what I asked her to do in the end, I said, look, I would, I'm happy to, have another conversation, I think. But I said to her, I'd really like you to talk to a few other people. I was like, because you may talk to a bunch of other people and come back and go, no, I talked to them and I still think that you're the right person. But you may also talk to one of them and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
So click with that person. Don't know what the other guy was going on about.
Yeah, right. I did, and yes, so that's why. Go do it. Go speak to different people and see how you feel. Yeah. See how you feel. Don't just, because research shows that the key to those spaces is the relationship. That's the thing that creates the change. It's the relationship, not the technique, not the skill, not the, it is that relationship. The relationship makes all the difference. That connection is really, really important. So if you're not feeling it, then you're probably going to hold back.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you find yourself doing that, A, explore it, and B, allow yourself to go find another therapist or coach.
Well, and I think for me, there's almost two sides of it, because sometimes it is, well, you could say arguably it's always me and my stuff, right? But I've had that experience of being like, this person is not the right person for me. Yeah. But then I've also had experiences where I've realized that I'm the one that's spiky around that issue or that thing. And I think, I've recognized, what, it probably wouldn't matter whoever it was. If they were dealing with this bit, I'd probably have a problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hence for me, it's like, explore it first, bring it to that space, and trust yourself.
Yeah. And I think that for me has been part of the journey, that learning to trust myself. And I think some of that can only come through through having a go.
Yeah.
Seeing like, oh, do you know what? Maybe that person's not right for me. It's like, maybe I try this person and I think they're not right for me. And then I find someone else. Oh, the next person I talk to, great, much better connection. But if I've tried 7 people and none of them are right for me, then maybe might be something else going on. Maybe not, but might be worth checking.
Yeah. Because people can't. Yeah, I've worked with people or met people who fall into that space of nobody is able to help me. And sometimes it's their own story of wanting to be stuck in that space of going, well, I'm so bad. Yeah. My life is so fucking terrible that no one's going to be able to help. So yeah, check in with yourself, see where you're at with it. Yeah, and if the resistance is you, and again, you can explore that with the right person.
Yeah. Well, just as kind of an addendum to that, as like a fourth point, you could say, is that there's no defined path. It's find what works for you.
Yeah.
And this, again, it ties in with the label stuff we were talking about. So I went to get therapy through the NHS, and I went the CBT route. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I found was that I only met the therapist on my first appointment, even after I've gone through all this, like, I guess it was a triage questionnaire process. Mm-hmm. And then I met the person and we just really didn't gel.
Yeah.
And even then when I realized, oh, hang on a minute, I'm being spiky as fuck and I'm got all my barriers up, when I then dropped them and finally went, okay, right, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and do some work on this. And I remember bringing him a bunch of stuff that I did and we had a conversation about it. And then it was in that moment where I was like, do you know what? This isn't the right person for me. I think at the time that was when I arrogantly was like, fuck this, I can do better than this. But reflecting back, it was highlighting was this is not the right relationship for me. And I subsequently then went on and found a therapist privately who I really gelled with and I made loads of progress with.
Yeah. Just, try it out.
So, closing thoughts on getting help, where to start, all that jazz.
Well, I think it's a step-by-step process, and it's about trusting yourself and allowing yourself to explore and be curious and feeling into it.
Yeah. I love that. So my closing thoughts are trust your gut. Instinct over labels. Experience over ideas and marketing. The right path is the right path for you.
Love it. Yes.
So, 28 episodes.
Woo!
Done and dusted. You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery and Deep Shit, with your TheraCoach hosts,
David Bird
and Amy Dave.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing, helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's ami.dave.11.